Good evening, YouTube. Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. I hope you guys are doing well. A lot to talk about in this one, so buckle up. This could be lengthy. We'll have timestamps in the description of the video to see what type of weather applies to your area. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into things. So here is the outlook for the updated severe weather outlook that we have. We're now within the 72-hour range, so now we have our marginal risk along with our slight risk here. Our corridors started to shrink a little bit now. We're still seeing some activity over towards we're still expecting a slight risk across Tennessee through most of Arkansas. That much hasn't changed, but we started to retract this little part here that was further out to the west now. Confidence has remained that the slight risk will be right around Fort Worth and Dallas, but areas like Waco or to the east of Waco are now in the marginal risk. We'll see how this continues to trend as time goes on, but the slight risk that we saw on day 4, day 5, where it was out a little bit further to the west, has receded a bit. When we look at our now Thursday slight risk, or day 4, that area has changed a little bit as well. This has shrunk just a tiny bit. Parts of western Mississippi isn't in it as much as before. And then a little chunk of it has been taken off to the east here. Atlanta, you're still in there, though, so keep an eye on this regardless. But a few areas a little bit further off to the east, like eastern Kentucky, for example, a little bit of that's been chipped away at. We'll still, of course, keep an eye on you. By tomorrow, we'll see who's in the marginal risk, because you still have to take that seriously. But the slight risk is going to be obviously the more urgent threat. That being said, let's go ahead and now take a look at the models, because we do have a wintry side to this too, so I'm covering both in the video. That's why it's going to be a bit lengthy, so just be ready for that. So we're going to start out looking at the Euro. We have the vorticity map up, and also there's a series of snowstorms that are going to be going through here. This first one is not a snowstorm. It's not quite cold towards the center, so as a result, we're not going to get too much coming from that. You might see a little bit of snow on the back side of this towards the central plains here, towards Kansas. But as this gets ejected, we get another injection of cold air coming in with this trough here. And one thing to also note here, we've seen a little bit of a downtrend in the extremity of the dynamics with the severe weather threat as well, partially because if we look at this takes a little bit longer to go negatively tilted, and in some cases it doesn't. This kind of has that little bit of a neutral tilt look to it now, more so. I've been noticing that trend over the last few runs. And as we move this forward, this is a pretty sharp streak right here, but most of the activity will start to develop through this sector right here, as aforementioned. That much hasn't changed. I think if there's going to be any sort of enhanced risk that's issued, I'm thinking it's going to mostly be across this sector here. I'm mainly thinking the target is going to be somewhere around Arkansas, maybe even central Arkansas. We'll have to see how these storms evolve through the night. I think once we get in range of the convective models, which will be by tomorrow afternoon, we'll be getting a much better idea of what to expect here. That being said, move this forward, and we see the same outcome, and I keep right-clicking. And simply put, severe weather threat remains the same. When we look towards the wintry side of things, I think our rain-snow line is going to develop, I would say, right across here. And we could see some moderate to heavy snow, because there's a pretty good moisture flow with this as well. But it's all about where that moisture and that cold air end up intersecting. That's going to be the key battle zone. So right across here, if you are north of this line that I've created, odds are you're going to end up seeing snow. That being said, we go forward again. I think there's a much greater chance of there being snow, or the heaviest snow being over towards the northern plains, heading towards the Twin Cities and then the Great Lakes. And then by the time we look at things on Friday, I expect maybe the Ohio Valley getting into the action here. It's crazy to think that some of these guys here towards Central Ohio have the chance of severe weather on Thursday, and then Friday there's a slight chance of maybe a few snow showers. Either way, those temperatures are going to be dropping regardless of the precip. So keep an eye on that over there. Really, this is going to be a pretty strong cold front. So for the southeast, as far as the weekend is concerned, something to keep an eye on there as well. Let's make our comparison with the GFS. It's a pretty similar look, if I were to be honest with you. I mean, it's a similar look. It's a little bit more robust still. We do have to watch this system here because it definitely has a much colder look to it than the Euro does. So I think there could be a little sleeve maybe on the north side of this where there could be a little pocket of snow that develops. I would say Kansas and Nebraska, I'd watch out if I were you, just in case. And I haven't really looked at the precip models much. I've been mainly looking at the vorticity here. So, but basically within that circle is what I would be watching right now. We'll have to see how that evolves as well, of course. But as we go forward here, it's a similar situation. Trough gets ejected, and then the new trough takes over, and this is by Wednesday evening. I'm kind of starting to see this lean more so towards the late night, maybe nocturnal type of threat. Again, the main question is, how will these storms evolve? What kind of instability will we be working with? Because there seems like whenever I look at the synopsis, it's not high confidence on how much instability will be available. I've been seeing numbers ranging from 250 joules per kilogram up to 1250. Of course, when we get into 1,000, we have to start looking a little bit closer for the severe weather threat, but 250 to 500, it's pretty limited. Other dynamics are going to have to be in much greater abundance in order to overcome that deficit, so to speak. But in the end, it's all the same as far as the outcome's concerned. Storm system comes through, front comes in afterwards, cold temperatures fall in behind that. But then by the time we get into the weekend, we're warming right back up again. But that's the look that we have with the vorticity map. The jet stream hasn't really changed too much with that. I think that's going to be the main driving component along with the lift and vorticity with this system. Moisture is there still as well, so there's no real reason to look at that. We'll look at that in tomorrow's video. So what we're going to go ahead and actually look at now is the precip, and then we'll start to lean more into the wintry side of things. So this is the GFS right now, and we'll switch over to the Euro in just a second because these are, of course, looking different almost every single time they do. So we always have to keep an eye on them. Make sure I got the time frame here for you guys. So this is the first storm system. This is the trough that's going to end up being ejected. Towards the north side of this, that pocket develops right around central Nebraska here. GFS has it a little further north than what I was anticipating. There still could be a pretty sufficient pocket of light to moderate, maybe even somewhere around there we get heavy snow. Another thing to note is with that next trough coming in, this could yield for a much bigger storm, much bigger snow event for areas around the Rockies and a little bit to the east of it too. So we have to watch. Areas like Denver, Salt Lake City, all throughout Utah. Really, there's a pretty good chance that we'll see some moderate to heavy snow throughout the day, throughout the evening on Tuesday and into Wednesday. And then, of course, as this treks east, we have to watch Kansas, Nebraska, and we watch a snow band or a snow sleeve start to develop across Iowa. We still have some remnant snow expected across Nebraska and Kansas, and this will trek through the Great Lakes, and then eventually it'll be north of the border by this point. So if anyone in the Northeast is looking for snow, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you aren't at this point now, you're not going to get it. You're mostly going to be getting rain. It's going to be a cold rain, though, so I don't think you'll be too thrilled about that. That being said, like I said, by Friday, the weather's just about out of here by Friday evening, and we have a pretty clear picture heading into Saturday. Euro shows a pretty similar deal, actually, with this as well. Little sleeve develops around central Nebraska, and as it transgresses north into colder air, we see that moisture begin to deepen along with the low, and we're able to get additional snow to pop up around Minnesota, around the Twin Cities, of course, too. and then throughout the Dakotas. That gets ejected, and while that trough is getting ejected, this low will deepen, and we will see our snow develop across the Rockies, even parts of the desert Southwest now. We'll have to watch you guys too, because there's some pretty interesting snowfall totals for you guys as well. Now, one thing I'm starting to keep a note of with the Euro here is we're starting to see a little bit more definition, a little bit more clarity in advance in regards to what kind of storm mode we could be seeing. I do see a lot of line segments, but discrete supercells could be possible. But one thing I'm always looking for here is maybe this little area right here. This could be a confluence band, and that's one thing that still concerns me with this in regards to a potential tornado threat, maybe even an outbreak. Hard to say given the lack of instability, but anytime I've seen stuff like this, that sometimes will be a telltale sign. Not to scare anyone, but this is definitely something I'm going to have to be watching really close here. So moving this forward, we see our snow band develop across Iowa and into the Great Lakes. That doesn't change, and neither does a severe weather threat here. So we're in pretty good agreement at this point. We're going to see a pretty good swath of snow develop across this region here from the secondary storm system. That's a terrible drawing. Oh, wow. I'm doing terrible at this. And then the first snowstorm or snow system, I'm thinking the sleeve starts here. And then pretty much through here is what we're going to be watching. Sorry if these drawings are crap. I'm not used to using this. First time I've ever used it, really. Or the first times I've ever used it are when I started this channel. But that's what we have going there. The last thing to look at is our snowfall totals. We'll probably even look at the rainfall or the quantity of precipitation. This is what we could see from the rainfall totals as well. But overall, throughout the course of the week, in other words, we could be seeing some pretty impressive snow totals, even towards the desert Southwest. We could see a large pocket of 2 to 4 inches, some areas seeing 4 to 6 inches. And there's pockets in here towards higher elevations where we could be seeing up to a foot of snow, even in areas like Arizona and even New Mexico. There's a spot over here where we could be seeing up to about 2 feet plus, maybe even close to 3. And then the same can be said towards southern Colorado. You guys are the big winners in this situation here. We have one pocket here where I saw 51 inches. There it is right there. We also have to watch you too, Denver, because you guys over here could very well be seeing up to about 6 to 8 inches plus. And then across this region here towards Montana, Idaho, widespread areas where we could see 6 to 10 inches, some areas getting above a foot in the higher elevations. Then, of course, towards the far northwest on the mountain ranges, we have pretty significant snowfall expected there as well. Here's where our 2 snow sleeves are expected to occur right here. Widespread area where we could see about 6 to 10 inches throughout the course of the week. We'll have to see how this trends too, along with this area here. But then here's our secondary area that's popped up. We see that sleeve develop more so towards central Nebraska. We're seeing about 2 to 3 inches or 1 to 3 inches, I would say. And this stretches into a swath where we could see maybe about 4, 5, maybe even 6 inches in a couple of places, maybe more. That stretches all the way to the north of the border. Then this heavy snow pocket pops up here, and some of these areas could be getting walloped as a result, especially over towards the line between Nebraska and Iowa. There's a big pocket over here, according to the Euro, where we could see up to about maybe 18 inches in some spots, which is crazy. But this is a pretty dynamic storm system, so I can't rule it out, honestly. I think it's actually very much possible. I do think the totals are a little bit overdone here, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens with this. As we look at the Great Lakes here, especially towards southern Wisconsin into the southern parts of Michigan, below the UP here, we could still see up to about a foot or more of snow. And of course, once we get on through Thursday and into Friday, this heavy snow starts to work north of the border. So one last thing to look. So that's what, actually that was the GFS. Wow. I didn't even know that switched over. Euro is actually showing a similar look, maybe a little less aggressive on the totals. And then here's the Canadian. Canadian's a little bit lighter on the totals too. Actually quite a bit lighter. Also has this trending a little further south. We'll see what that ends up doing as well. Then the last thing to look at now is the blend of models. So the blend of models shows a pretty similar look, but slightly less aggressive totals. We could say over towards this pocket here from our second system. There could be a sleeve where we see about 3 to 6 inches. Some areas even a little bit above. Towards the Rockies, still having significant totals. 2 feet possible in some of the higher elevations. And then, of course, this little central pocket right here, which is interestingly taking a little bit of a jog south. We can watch over towards areas like maybe southern Iowa, maybe even a tiny little piece of northern Missouri here, where we could see about 3 to 6 inches possibly. And then across this region here, of course, we could see 3 to 6 inches as well. Widespread area of 1 to 2 inches across Michigan, even into Illinois here as well. But other than that, it's not too dissimilar from the other models that we were seeing here with the Cucchiera ratio. So a lot to keep track of here. I know this might be a pretty long video. I haven't even checked the time. I don't even dare to really. But either way, that's the end of this video here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you found it useful. If you did, of course, you know what to do. Drop a like. Always appreciate that. Share this video to anyone that may be affected by this weather system coming up, because this will be affecting a lot of people in some way, shape, or form. So the more you do that, the more it helps me get out there as well too. So always appreciate that. Regardless, I appreciate you guys being here. I'll have a video for you guys tomorrow, of course. But until then, this has been Tired Metalhead Weatherman. I'm signing off. Have a good night. I'll see you soon.